You're definitely like an experienced producer. Like, this is an experienced producer speaking, people. But let me ask you this. Does that, do you think that that helps you in being a great performer, being an experienced producer?
I've found over the years that one feeds the other. I like the studio because it's my place of invention. And then the stage has a whole other dynamic, because the stage, you are communicating directly with an audience. The audience feeds the band, and the band feeds the audience, and you get this incredible energy. And there are things that'll happen in a live situation that could never happen in the studio. But I respect that has happened, and I try and bring it into the studio. Consequently, I've made a lot of records where we've not even used headphones. We just use a full-on PA, everybody in the room slamming it out. And so the live energy has been captured on a few records that I've worked on because of that.
How much time do you, in your schedule, how much time do you get to commit to being creative and, you know, essentially just pulling from your emotions? I mean, because you have your own studio, so it's not about like, you know, studio time at this point in your life, right?
Yeah,
it's just more about like...
Not about studio. Actually, it's about isolated time, which gets harder and harder to come by the busier you are. I'm sure you've noticed it yourself. You know, like I find that those moments, oftentimes in the morning, is the best time for me to go to an instrument, because no phone calls and
Is it that, or is it that our creative juices are running at a different level when it's early? Because there was a time where I spent 4 days in the studio, and I did like from 6 in the morning to about maybe 10 or 11. And I did like 10 songs in like 4 days.
Oh.
And I never forgot that, because it was, to me, it was just kind of like, okay, there's something to this, you know, 6, 7 in the morning thing. Is it that for you, or is it really that you believe, you know, there are no interruptions, no distractions?
Well, you're fresh, for sure.
Right?
At that time of the morning, you've not said anything. Great time to sing, actually, because your voice is a little deeper. And I was a newspaper delivery boy as a kid. I delivered the morning paper, and I love being on my own delivering the paper. And I think that's what got my imagination going. And so those early mornings in the studio, I think, bring that feeling back for me. But what do you think of this? Late at night, we are satisfied with slower rhythm. So if you make a nighttime record, as I made with Bob Dylan, this Oh Mercy record we made in New Orleans, he didn't want to work in the day. He said, Daniel, please, only work at night. If you do mixes, make them at night, because he really wanted to make a real dripping nighttime record. And I think there's some truth to it, that we chill at night and the rhythms, you know, maybe 4 or 5 BPM slower, that's all right.
Wow. Yeah, this is, I have to say, this is probably one of the most educational talks I've had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just learning like so much. What are you not properly being recognized for?
I'm very rhythmic, and I'm a little bit, and I love hip hop records because I think they got the best bottom and the best grooves.
Can I just tell you something though?
Sure.
And people may not want to hear this, but like, I don't want to hear bottom anymore.
Oh.
I'm so bottomed out. No pun intended. But it's just so much.
Yes.
I mean, there are records where there's essentially nothing but 808s.
Right.
Literally. It's just like, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's been said that you see recording as like basically documenting, right? So it's also manipulating and distorting. So how do you find, what do you feel like is the best balance between those two?
Yeah. Well, the documenting part is the documenting of time, what's going on in people's lives at that time, emotionally and otherwise. Once you understand why you're there, then, and you've got something on the go, then that's when manipulations come in. That's when sonic modifications and manipulations come in. I've worked with some very smart people who are devoted to sort of sonic experiment. Brian Eno, of course, and The Edge from U2, and Flood, there's an engineer named Flood that I work with on a good few records. That group of heads at a given time was very, very devoted to breaking new ground sonically. And we managed to pull it off a few times, you know, and going back to what we were talking about in the 80s, we discovered the sound, it's a sound that Eno and myself designed in Canada. It's this very atmospheric sound, very orchestral sound. And we were able to bring that to the lads in Dublin. And so that's an example of something that we were very devoted to and spent years working on, and it was really our sound. Mm-hmm. And it's nice to, it was very nice to share it with those people. So finding new sounds is a very, it's a big priority for me. And it's not easy because it's much easier to just reference old records, you know, let's do what they did in the 70s, or maybe there's a great drum sample to be had from back in the day, a James Brown record. And so you get instant vibe by a quick sample. And I like that technology, okay. But I think it's, when I look at the man in the mirror,
it's so much cooler.
If we can say, we actually invented something.
Yeah.
And that makes me happy.
It's funny, you make sounds and I go looking for them.
Okay.
I very, very rarely make sounds. When I do, it's been drums and it's just like buckets on the 2 and 4, just because I want like a harder attack on a snare or something. Or sometimes I've just done, you know, drum patterns with like a lot of.
You gotta be kidding.
Well, look, you know, bottom in. You know, it's important on some level, right? But I personally like. I just think that things should just be rare and, you know, spontaneous, right? You know, music is supposed to hit you spontaneously. You know, just like, ooh, what was that? Let me see that again, or let me hear that again. So, you know.
Well, listen, in support of what you're saying, some of the byproducts that come to me in a day are more interesting than the thing we've been working on for 3 or 4 days. Mm-hmm. So there'll be like a tiny little thing. It's like, whoa, let's go that direction.
And that's it, right?
And that's it. And we can afford to do that because, you know, we don't have massive film crews around. It's just a studio with 3 or 4 people in my case. So many times the byproduct that came my way will be the thing that I pursue, and it ends up being more interesting than what I set out to do. I wake up with ideas, and I dream about ideas, you know, when I'm going to bed. Oh, I visualize sound.
That was incredible.
Oh, thanks.
Do you understand what that could do to somebody with a joint? To me, that sounded like a U2 record made for like a Kubrick film.